Down to business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone. Oh, my goodness. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the #1 liquid-fueled, liquid-lubricated show on the interwebs. This is the Whiskey Musings Broadcast. And I screwed up and didn't get the closed captioning thing going. Anyway, okay, so apparently my Rumble chat is just, they're all getting, well, interesting. Some of the ladies there are going braless. I don't know if they're burning the bra or whatever. I saw that earlier. And hey, what did you guys think of the new video that I stuck up there for Rumble? So for those of you that aren't on Rumble, let me kind of explain, obviously, first of all, you need to be over on Rumble. But first of all, let me explain kind of what happens. Rumble, at least right now, has you upload a short video to essentially start the whole streaming process. That's the thing. The video that I put up there did not have any audio to it, and apparently I'm getting raked over the coals. Because I didn't put any background music or anything. The reason why I didn't put any background music to it is because the video itself was only like a minute long. And so I just, it was, I didn't want to put the audio or put anything in as far as, the audio in the background, but I guess I'm getting kicked by it. So maybe I'll continue. Maybe I'll add a little bit. Yeah, it played, but all it was just a flashing, going live soon up in the upper corner. That's the only thing that was actually, quote, active, and it would go on and off about every second. Okay. So anyway, maybe I'll figure out how long of a video I can put up. And then I'll see if I can find some music to match. I just don't want it to just sit here and roll over and over and over and play the same thing because, I get bored with that if I'm listening to the exact same song for, half an hour or 25 minutes or whatever it is before it comes in. Amy wants me to play what she calls the twisty music, which is actually the, what is that? What is this? Damn it. The title was right on the tip of my tongue when I first thought of it. Secret Agent Man Secret Agent Man by, shoot, I'll figure it out. But anyway, that's the title of the song that she's talking about. That it's got kind of like a 70s, a 70s beach kind of vibe or whatever. Anyway, okay. So, hello to everyone out on Rumble Land and, of course, also on Facebook. And for those of you who are over on Twitter, I can't interact with you on Twitter. So come on over to Rumble, interact with the chat. Come on, head on over that way. That would be great. You gotta join in and join in the chat. I interact with the chat as much as I can. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I can't see, that kind of thing. I mean, I watch it, but sometimes I can't get to it all the time because of other things that I'm doing. But anyway, so yeah, I went ahead and changed the thing rather than having me talking to you for like 15 seconds or whatever it was. The old one was. I still have the old one, so if you really want that one back, I could go ahead and throw that one in there too. But anyway, yeah, you guys, I mean, seriously, if you're on a platform, even if you listen to me on like Spotify or, Google or whatever, for the audio portion that I put up, afterward, then, do me a favor and, try and come on over to Rumble. My Rumble follows have stalled. I'm at 576, and I've been sitting there for a few months. So I'm gonna make a request to all my Whiskey Warriors out there. If you could do me a favor and really help promote this channel, I want to get farther and farther. I've picked up a lot of follows on Twitter. So all of you Twitter folks, if you're on Twitter and you're watching me on Twitter, head on over to Rumble, please sign up. It's free. And then you can go and follow the Whiskey Musings Broadcast channel over there, and you can watch me. It doesn't matter to me whether you watch me on Twitter or whether you watch me on Facebook or whether you watch me on YouTube or whether you watch me on Rumble, but the follows are really, really the main thing that I try and keep a watch on. So anyway, oh yeah, sorry, Bonnie. I keep thinking of it as Twitter. It's now X. X. He's trying to. Elon's trying to make it into whatever. Which, speaking about that, there were a lot of people who were complaining about the fact that he's got this big old white nasty X on the top of the platform, or on top of the headquarters building down in San Francisco, and apparently he didn't have a permit to put it up there, so they complained about it. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it's nuts. Speaking of Twitter, by the way, tonight I'm gonna have a pretty large segment on something that I saw on Twitter today, and I've been kind of going back and forth with some people over on Twitter about this. And it actually inspired the title for tonight's show, meaning that, leftists don't comprehend. They literally do not have any reading comprehension skills whatsoever. And it's amazing to me how they are willing to jump into conversations with these kinds of things. They're willing to jump into conversations without fully grasping and comprehending or understanding what the entire topic was about. And commonly what ends up happening with these folks is before I get involved in that, let me just digress here. I got a couple things to handle first. First of all, I'm going to get into it, but first of all, let me just tell you what I'm drinking. Tonight, I'm drinking the Redneck Riviera whiskey by John Rich, the co-founder of the hit country duo Big and Rich. And he created this, and I've been wanting to try it. He's got another one, or another version called Grandma's version, which I'll probably have to grab at some time. But anyway, and of course I'm not doing my usual lucky shot glass, because unfortunately, while it did get washed, it didn't end up in the freezer, so it didn't get cold. And as you know, I like the cold. And yes, Bonnie, I see. Yes, you will forgive me. I get it. Bonnie really likes me to do Kentucky bourbon. She and her husband, Fat Paws over on Rumble, would love for me to drink Four Roses all the time. But I can't, I mean, not saying that I can't, because I could. I mean, Four Roses is awesome. I would love to drink Four Roses all the time, but I don't always have the bottle. So, and I've got to expand my palate here, people. I do. I got to expand my palate. Anyway. All right. So let's go ahead and get into, of course, tonight's sponsor, the Institute on the Constitution. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one mission: to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.whiskeymusings.online, to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.whiskeymusings.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's iotc.whiskeymusings.online. Or if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to constitution.whiskeymusings.online. Look at this. It is almost an 1/8 inch of saddle leather. The interior pages are water resistant. And check out that stitched binding. Look at that thing. That goes all the way through the leather. They have a 100-year warranty against materials and defects in workmanship. If it breaks apart or falls apart on you or whatever, send it to them and they will either fix it or replace it for free. That's the Constitution of the United States in Saddleback leather with nice rounded edged corners. Great stocking stuffer gift. It is buddy tested and buddy approved, along with approval by my youngest whiskey warrior, who used this exact item to get through his civics badges for his scouts, his Boy Scout level stuff. And do me a favor, go and check out the Institute on the Constitution today. All right. And let's go ahead and move into my next segment, which is On This Day in American History. And for On This Day in American History, we read from the American Patriots Almanac by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb. This is a fabulous book, chock full of all kinds of little factoids, little stories, and everything else about our historical founding. And tonight we are going to talk about One Hero's Pledge. Martin Treptow, a native of Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, was working as a barber in Cherokee, Iowa, in 1917 when he enlisted in the Army to fight World War I. His regiment arrived in France in December of that year, and he wrote a pledge in his diary as a New Year's resolution for 1918. Ronald Reagan, in his first inaugural address, spoke of Treptow's fate. Under a marker lies a young man, Martin Treptow, who left his job in a small-town barbershop in 1917 to go to France with the famed Rainbow Division. There, on the Western Front, he was killed trying to carry a message between battalions under heavy artillery fire. We're told that on his body was found a diary. On the flyleaf, under the heading, My Pledge, he had written these words: America must win this war. Therefore, I will work. I will save. I will sacrifice, I will endure, and I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost, as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on me alone. The crisis we are facing today requires our best effort and our willingness to believe in ourselves and to believe in our capacity to perform great deeds, to believe that together with God's help, we can and will resolve the problems which now confront us. And after all, why shouldn't we believe that? We are Americans. And that is today's On This Day in American History. Now, a few episodes ago, I did play a segment from Ronald Reagan's inaugural address, first inaugural address. And yeah, it was it's powerful. You know, the great communicator, which is what Reagan was called, is to me one of the greatest presidents that we have ever had in our entire history, but definitely within modern times. He is fantastic, and he borrowed that and used it, credited it, unlike Biden. Anyway, all right, I digress. Let's move on. So, one of the biggest things that have been happening here recently in the undertows of our Congress and everything else has been conversations with regards to Samuel Alito, Clarence Thomas, and some of the things that they've been doing. Now, the left has been attacking those folks, and they have been saying that these people need some sort of an ethics, laws, rules, whatever. Now, the question that's before us is whether or not Congress can actually, regarding things like an ethics rules and things like that, can they dictate to the Supreme Court how the Supreme Court does their business? And I saw this in, on Twitter. And if you have a copy of your Constitution, you may want to have it handy here. Because of the fact that there's going to be a couple sections in there that I talk about. But here's the thing. I saw this on Twitter, and it's not, this isn't the only one that I saw. Okay, what the heck happened here? All right. This isn't the only one that I saw that said this, but this was the first one. So here, just to let you know, it's an account called Tribe Law, and his first name is Lawrence, and he's Lawrence Tribe. Now, my guess is that the law has nothing to do with legal, okay, but that it has to do with his first name, Lawrence. But anyway, he calls out an article in Politico, which I'll show you here in just a minute, and read from it here in just a minute. But this is what Alito basically told NBC, which Politico, of course, glommed onto and put it together. And Alito says, "I know this is a controversial view, but I'm willing to say it. No provision in the Constitution gives Congress the authority to regulate the Supreme Court. Period." And Lawrence Tribe basically says, that's absurd. The man has gone off the deep end, period. And of course, me being me, I have to weigh in on something like that. I of course said, Alito is constitutionally correct. Now, there's a few subjects apparently that really, really piss off the left. And most of the time it happens to be things like, abortion, the 10th Amendment, transgenderism, and apparently this is a problem because I immediately got jumped on by several people. Now, it wasn't this particular response that got it because, as per usual, the left in their hive mind, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, the brilliant bartender of the Northeast, frickin' chimed in here and, basically quote tweeted a very similar thing. Nate Raymond talked about the whole thing with Justice Alito telling apparently the Wall Street Journal that, Congress has no business policing SCOTUS. And she chimed in with, "What a surprise. Guy who is supposed to enforce checks and balances thinks checks shouldn't apply to him. Too bad. Corruption and abuse of power must be stopped no matter the source. In fact, the court should be the most subject to scrutiny because it is unelected and life appointed." Now, to that one, of course, I responded, in kind, Alito is constitutionally correct. They can't tell Congress how you do your job, and you can't tell them theirs. It's called separation of powers for a reason. Now, again, going to the piece, the Politico, which is, of course, Dan Bongino calls them bullshitico, and I actually agree with him because they are a completely left-wing organizational magazine outlet, whatever you want to call them. They will lie and toe the party line as many times as they want. And, anyway, the piece calls out Samuel Alito. Who is realistically pushing back by a drive by Democrat lawmakers to tighten ethics rules at the Supreme Court, declaring that he does not believe Congress has the power to legislate on the subject. And he says, Congress did not create the Supreme Court, Alito said in an interview published Friday with the writers of the Wall Street Journal editorial page. And then Alito goes on, I know this is a controversial view, but I'm willing to say it. No provision in the Constitution gives them the authority to regulate the Supreme Court, period. And of course, this stance, according to the piece here, puts him on a collision course with Democrat senators who are seeking to advance long-standing legislation by capitalizing on high-profile news stories about unreported luxury travel, by justices. Republicans have denounced the effort as a transparent bid to defang the Supreme Court's 6-3 conservative majority. I call it more of a 5-4. But as it moves to the country's jurisprudence to the right, which is true. We should be moving to the right. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse was apparently asked about Alito's claim, and he happens to be one of the court's most vocal critics up on Capitol Hill. Of course, he's a Democrat. He's from Rhode Island, and he's a complete moron. But beyond that, the court's financial disclosure requirements are a law passed by Congress. Its recusal requirements are a law passed by Congress, and the body that implements financial disclosure and code of conduct issues is the Judiciary Conference, a body created by Congress. And then he says, please, let's not pretend Congress can't make amendments to laws Congress has passed or oversee agencies that Congress has created. All right. And of course, he goes on and he talks about, the justices haven't objected to anything about that, blah, blah, blah. Now, the thing that they are talking about, the thing that they are talking about here, what? Wait, hold on. What's make an announcement on what? What am I supposed to be announcing here? Oh, I see. Apparently outlaw dogs. So let's go ahead and give a real quick round of applause. I got to back off of this. Hold on. So let's give a round of applause everywhere to Outlaw Dogs over on Rumble. She is becoming a grandmother for the first time. So there we go. Outlaw Dogs. Yay. Congratulations. You'll have a new group of rugrats running around your house rather than just the dogs that you showed us earlier. The racer dachshunds or whatever. Amy, that's great. I do appreciate that. Amy put in a Rumble rant for us. So congratulations, Cheryl, for becoming a grandma. But unfortunately, that's Cheryl's thing, not mine. I do appreciate the Rumble rant, though, but I don't need to be taking collections. I mean, I'm sorry. Okay. So Tommy Young over on Facebook says, yay. All right. Congratulations to Outlaw Dogs over there. That is just fantastic. And so that's going to go on. All right. Let's get back to the show at hand. All right. So here's the thing. And this is really, really where things are kind of wrapping out. Now, the Politico piece says a provision in the Constitution does seem to provide Congress with some latitude to oversee the High Court. One portion says that with regards to many types of cases, The Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction both as to law and fact, and such exceptions and under such regulations as the Congress shall make. Okay, here we go. All right. First of all, these people cannot understand the Constitution. They cannot understand. Well, first of all, they hate it. Let's just put it that way. But the other thing is that they can't freaking read. Folks, they cannot freaking read. So here we go. First of all, you need to understand Article 3. Let's be clear, okay? Article 3 in the Constitution was the last article written prior to the publication of the Constitution of the United States, and it was after a long marathon 100-plus day session. So Article 3 didn't get a lot of detail thrown into it. But that being said, the section that they are talking about, all right, is under Section 2. And here's the thing. Let me see if I can blow this up a little bit so you guys can see it a little better. All right. Now, so here's the thing. That should be good enough, I think. All right. So under Section 2 here, this is what Section 2 says. Okay. The judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under this Constitution, the laws of the United States and treaties made, or which shall be made under their authority, to all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, to all cases of admiralty and maritime jurisdiction, to all controversies to which the United States shall be a party, to all controversies between two or more states, between a state and a citizen and citizens of another state, between citizens of different states, between citizens of the same state claiming lands and lands under grants of different states, between a state or the citizens thereof and foreign states, citizens or subjects. Okay. That first paragraph, okay, that I just read to you outlines specifically the types of cases that the Supreme Court has jurisdiction primarily over. And by primarily, it means that any of those cases that are in that first section for now, under that first section is where the Supreme Court has primary jurisdiction, meaning that they are not the secondary court. Okay. Now let's go on to paragraph 2. In all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, and to those in which a state shall be party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction. So basically what this is essentially outlining all of the cases, all of the situations where the Supreme Court has judicial authority in the United States. Okay. Period. Now, here's the clause that Politco is trying to manipulate into another, a different definition than what it actually says. In all other cases before mentioned, the Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction, both as to law and fact, with such exemptions and under such regulations as the Congress shall make. So that's the statement that they are after, okay? That's the statement. But here's the thing. That statement is referencing all other cases. In everything that was mentioned in paragraph 1, the Supreme Court shall be the appellate court, have the appeal jurisdiction, unless Congress decides to make exceptions or make other regulations. Okay. This particular statement has zero reference to the Supreme Court by itself. Okay. It is not that the regulations that they're talking about does not reference the Supreme Court. It references the types of cases that the Supreme Court has judicial power over. Okay? This is why this is such a freaking nightmare. Why the people at Politico and any of the left? Because again, I got hit with this on a couple of different platforms, a couple of different things. They were saying, oh, well, because it says regulations such as the Congress shall make, that means that Congress has control over the Supreme Court. They don't. They have control over the cases that are listed. The cases. Okay? Now, it continues in Section 2. This is actually called the Judicial Power Clause within this in terms of outlining how, outlining where and when the Supreme Court gets involved. Okay? So the third paragraph here says the trial of all crimes except in cases of impeachment, which, by the way, impeachment is over in Congress. That's why they accepted it here. The trial of all crimes shall be by jury, and such trial shall be held in the state where said crimes shall have been committed, or when not committed within any state, the trial shall be at such a place or places as Congress may by law have directed. So here's the thing, and this is part of the problem, okay? And honestly, I can understand a little bit of confusion with this, all right? But I'm just going to outline it here for you. First of all, Article 3 was written the quickest. It was written at the last, and it basically is that it outlines the Supreme Court in a very, very framed way, okay? Very limited, very quick. But none of in here, not even in Section 1 of Article 3, does it even talk about how the Congress has control over the Supreme Court. In fact, the rest of our judicial system, everything below the Supreme Court, because of the fact that Article 3 was written so damn quickly, Congress, one of the first things that the first Congress passed under our new Constitution of the United States was dealing with the judicial system, where they set up the federal courts, the state courts, and all of that. But that has nothing to do with the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is a third branch, albeit a little weaker than the other two, is the third branch of government. And its whole 100% purpose is to take care of it. And in fact, when you read the first statement in Section 1 under Article 3, it clearly states this: the judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court, and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. So if Congress had the power to override the Supreme Court, wouldn't the framers had put that in the first thing? The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in a Congress created, Congress established Supreme Court. But they didn't. They basically said the judicial power shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. Now, this doesn't mean that Congress can't impeach a justice. Okay, they do, they could if they wanted to, because of the fact that if one was really in a bad, let's say one of them was really, really bad, the second statement in Section 1 kind of covers this. It says the judges, both of the supreme and inferior courts, shall hold their offices during good behavior and shall at stated times receive for their services a compensation which shall not be diminished during their continuance in office. So there is nothing in Article 3 that basically says that Congress has any control over the Supreme Court. They have control over the inferior courts, meaning the federal courts and potentially the state courts. But yeah, it's not this whole concept that regulations that Congress shall make, this statement right here, and under such regulations as Congress shall make, has nothing to do with the court. It has everything to do with the other cases mentioned outside of ambassadors, public ministers, and consuls, and those in which a state shall be party. These people, their reading comprehension completely sucks. Okay. Congress does not have any authority, technically any authority over the Supreme Court itself. Just like the Supreme Court can't tell Congress, oh, by the way, your, the way that you create laws and things like that. Yeah, that's not constitutional. Or there's no way that SCOTUS could actually go over to the executive branch and say, oh, the way that you're enforcing that law really isn't kosher. They can't do that. Okay. They cannot do that. What they can do essentially is they can impeach somebody, a particular justice, but they cannot tell the Supreme Court, just like the Supreme Court can't tell the other two branches how to do their job or how to conduct their business. They cannot do it. Now, there is some crossover a little bit, like, for an example, Congress shall have the power to declare the punishment for treason. Okay, so they declare the punishment. But there's nothing in Article 3. There's nothing in Article 1. There's nothing in Article 2 that basically says that one of those three branches has control over the other. The leftists are completely off their rocker, and people like AOC, Ted Lieu, there was another senator from somewhere who was a Democrat, dumbass Democrat, who basically said something very similar to it. There is nothing in the Constitution that dictates that Congress shall have the power to, tell the Supreme Court what to do. And it's ludicrous for them to even think so. Constitutionally speaking, there is none. There is nothing that Congress can do for the Supreme Court. Now, that being said, the Supreme Court, if you'll notice in Article 3, doesn't have any definitions for how many are on the Supreme Court. Okay? There is no definition as to how many are made up. There's no definition in terms of, what the court is supposed to look like. And so because of this, that's part of the reason why under the first Congress that was convened, they went and set it up and created the rules for the Supreme Court in terms of its makeup and how it was supposed to be made, which is part of the reason why the Supreme Court has had the ability to be expanded and reduced over time. Because originally we didn't have 9 justices. We had less. And as time has gone on, they've expanded those justices, which is part of the reason why Congress is talking about expanding the court, which I don't think is going to actually get through Congress completely, especially not in the even Steven Congress that we have set. But they could, in theory, I mean, if the Democrats get enough of a control over both houses of Congress, that they wouldn't be, or that they couldn't expand the court, the question is, why would they? Because obviously if they expand the court and open up that whole Pandora's box, then you've got the other side of the coin when the other side takes control, that they either expand or reduce the court. So this is unfortunately Article 3. I feel like the founders sort of left us essentially out of touch, I guess, with this. But again, it was done very hurriedly. So let's just see something here. Article 3 explained. Let's go over here and see if this is right. So overview of congressional control over judicial power. So that's in Article 1 or Article 3, Section 1.5, which, yeah. So yeah, so this just kind of explains the little things. It explains things a little bit more in reference to how things have kind of done over time. Yeah, see, congressional power can abolish the federal courts, but they can't abolish the Supreme Court. They can't do anything with the Supreme Court. And that's the key here, is that the Supreme Court is set up specifically by the Constitution, and so constitutionally speaking, the Congress can't do anything with it. All right, so let's... Yeah, that just irks the crap out of me, honestly, when people who don't really understand reading comprehension about stuff. So anyway, yeah, I just get so frustrated at times with some of these people because they're just so damn stupid. I mean, seriously. Anyway, I just get frustrated. They are so damn dumb. And they don't even bother like researching or reading or even, trying to understand the deep. They just frustrate me. I need one of those things, honestly, that it like does, dark mode whiskey or something. I've seen Dan Bongino's got one, all that stuff. I'd love to have a meme that does that or whatever. But anyway. And yes, Mark over on Facebook, yes, it was a long segment. It needed to happen because these stupid ass people. Anyway. All right. Okay. So let's get back to one of our favorite subjects and topics of the hour today, Hunter Biden. So, the more that we start pulling at the strings, or the more that Congress has been pulling at the strings, the more we uncover. Now, apparently, Hunter Biden is his own worst enemy. I mean, let's just face it. He's not exactly the sharpest knife in the drawer. And he might be the smartest person that Joe Biden knows, but that doesn't say a lot for Joe Biden. I'll just say, anyway. All right. Well, apparently, that court case that he had where he was supposed to plead guilty and the plea bargain was thrown out by the judge. Well, a new revelation has come from the transcript out of that thing. I mean, okay, look, I've taken a lot of heat from the left on this. So, give me a moment on social media about this, but just give me a moment here, allow me a little indulgence here, but this popped in the Epic Times. Hunter Biden admits to receiving money from a Chinese CCP-linked company. Oh my my God. Oh, this guy just cannot save himself. Okay, so in the Epic Times, Hunter Biden admitted in court during his failed plea deal hearing on Wednesday that he received over $500,000 from a company with links to the Chinese Communist Party, appearing to contradict President Joe Biden's earlier claim that no one in the Biden family made any money from China. Oh my gosh. Do you remember when he was on stage with Donald Trump at one of the debates and he was saying the only person who made money from China is him? My family didn't make any money from China. My Biden is really horrible. I can't do Biden because I can't be stupid. But anyway, according to a court transcript obtained by the Epic Times, which they have a link to the PDF. All right. U.S. Attorney for the District of Delaware, David Weiss, read out an exhibit in court indicating that Hunter Biden earned $664,000 from a Chinese infrastructure investment company. The presiding judge, U.S. District Judge Mary Ellen Noriega, would later seek clarification about that company. This is her speaking. $664,000 from a Chinese infrastructure investment company. Is that one of the companies we've already talked about? She asked. I believe so, Mr. Biden replied. That's Hunter. Which one is that? This judge asked. I believed CEFC, the president's son answered. CEFC is a CCP-linked Chinese energy company. It was founded by Yi Zhengming, whom Hunter Biden told the judge was the individual he co-founded the firm Hudson West with in 2017. Who was your partner? The judge asked. I don't know how to spell his name. Yi Zhengming is the chairman of that company, which Mr. Biden said is no longer in existence. Hunter Biden's remarks in the Delaware court appear to contradict the president's earlier denials. My son has not made money in terms of this thing about what are you talking about, China? Mr. Biden told then President Donald Trump during a televised debate in October of 2020. The only guy who made money from China is this guy, Mr. Biden said at the time, referring to Mr. Trump. He is the only one. Nobody else has made money from China. The White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment on the apparent contradiction. Now, CEFC has apparently been in the crosshairs a number of times before, and most recently as part of the IRS whistleblowers redacted testimony before the House Ways and Means Committee. Okay, so they, this guy, oh my God, he can't help himself. He just can't. So anyway, he apparently now has it on the record that he has taken money from the CEFC organization that was linked to the CCP in China. Oh my gosh. This guy, I gotta tell you, if he's the smartest guy that Joe Biden knows, Joe Biden's in trouble. Oh my God, I cannot believe this guy. He's admitted in court. So now it's on the record that Hunter Biden took money from the CCP. Now, of course, there isn't any details as to what that money was for. The only thing that we can surmise is that it was for influence that the Bidens had in whatever it was that they were doing. But okay. But I've had it. I'm sorry. You know, leftist, you dumbass leftist, you wanted proof. You kept saying there is no proof. There is no proof. It's right here. Okay. The right thing. It's right here. It's on a transcript in a legal document, in a court of law. You cannot frickin' deny this. Okay. He admitted it in court. I'm done with this. I mean, no, I'm not done with the situation. I'm just done with being told that it's not proven, that there isn't anything. It's like, yeah, no, sorry, folks. He freaking did it. He took the money. And it's not only that, but we also have had the whole laptop thing. I mean, I've been taking a bunch of hits and I'm getting tired of getting beaten up over this. about how the laptop wasn't real. The FBI validated it. The FBI said it was real. The FBI has had the original laptop for years, okay? Years. It's not the, Rudy Giuliani copy. It is the real copy that was submitted to the FBI, and they sat on it. Well, apparently, Hunter's laptop, according to the New York Post, which, by the way, Miranda Devine did a absolute fantastic job. And yes, 3 Chevy asks, can we get a picture of that transcript? If you go to the Epoch Times article, it actually has a PDF transcript. And here it is right here. And I'll actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and download it just for the case, the sake here. Let me, give me just a second here. I put it in tonight's episode file so that I have it. I didn't download it before, but I'll do it now. So, all right. So I'm going to save it. Okay. But it's right here in the document. I mean, this is a facsimile of it, but it's here. Okay. But anyway, so the laptop that was broke by Miranda Devine. If you have a chance to read her book, by the way, it is fantastic. It's a fantastic book. Laptop from Hell is the title. If you get a chance to get it or read it, it's just fantastic. It outlines the entire freaking scheme, the entire scheme. But anyway, Hunter Biden's laptop is full of secret agreements and contracts with foreign business partners. Hunter Biden's abandoned laptop is filled with contracts and agreements between him and foreign business partners that could shine new light on his business dealings and potentially implicate his father. Insiders around the first son told the Post. Hundreds of documents are littered among the tens of thousands of emails contained on the laptop, but the files were not downloaded onto the device, and investigators cannot open most of them. During his father's vice presidency and after, Hunter Biden and his family have made millions of dollars from foreign sources trading on the family name, according to whistleblowers and bank records unearthed by the House Oversight Committee. Okay. Now, speaking of those bank records, okay, apparently the number of SARS reports on the Bidens themselves numbers in like the 170s. And Representative Comer was on Ted Cruz's podcast where he was saying that he used to work for a bank, was on the board of a bank for 10 years, and they only filed 2 reports. Count that. 2 individual SARS reports in the 10 years that he was on the board. So, yeah, I am just how people can be so naive and literally so dense that they are not looking at this and going, oh my gosh, we've got a compromised president in the White House. There is no way that anybody with any sense, I mean, I know my listeners are savvy, okay? You guys are all savvy. And I get that. But there's no way that somebody, even if they were like halfway smart, couldn't look at this and go, you know what? There's something wrong here. I just don't get it. And it keeps going. Okay. Here in the Washington Examiner, under the Hunter Biden investigation, apparently they have discovered that Hunter Biden's friends and partners were subjected to the FARA, the Foreign Agent Registration Act. They were subjected to those lobbying rules. The DOJ actually enforced them on Hunter Biden's business partners, but not on Hunter for doing the exact same things. According to the Washington Examiner piece, Hunter Biden worked closely with multiple people who disclosed their lobbying for foreign companies under the Foreign Agents Registration Act, raising questions about whether or not he broke the law by not registering himself for doing the same work. Well, it's not whether or not he did. He did break the law, okay? He broke the law. He also lobbied U.S. officials alongside many others who did not register under FARA for work that emails show clearly involved advocacy that would trigger the FARA requirements. The focus on Hunter Biden's foreign lobbying grew more intense this week when a judge in Delaware pressed prosecutors about whether or not they were continuing to investigate the president's son for alleged FARA violations. As you know, that was the primary reason as to why, I would say it was the primary reason as to why the whole plea deal thing fell apart. Oh, this is just, the more strings that get tugged in this case, the better, the more information that we get, the worse off the Bidens actually are. This guy never should have been in the White House. He never should have gotten there. This could have broke in October. Now, this goes back to my whole premise that I've been saying this entire time. The suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop by the big tech agencies, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, because I even had a couple of my videos banned by YouTube, taken off by YouTube, because I claimed that the Hunter Biden laptop was the number one election interference across the United States. Across the United States. It affected the election, period. If that had been allowed to live and breathe as it should have been, we wouldn't have Biden in the White House. It would have been Trump in the White House. Speaking of Trump, this guy that's going after him, yeah, he is not a very nice guy. So this piece in Town Hall talks about Jack Smith's long history of failed prosecution cases against Republicans. This guy he's a political hitman. That's all he is. He's nothing other than that. Okay. So this is part of the reason why I have serious doubts over everything, all of the indictments, everything else that is being put forth against Trump. Now, keep in mind, okay, Trump very well could have done some of the things that this guy is claiming that he did. The problem is not so much whether or not Trump actually did it or not, okay? The problem is that they are going after Trump, and I said this in a social media post today. The problem is they are going after Trump for the exact same, legally speaking, the exact same things that Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton did and got a pass on. So politically speaking, no matter what way you look at this, even if Trump is guilty of it, which we all know that Hillary Clinton was guilty of wiping servers, crushing BlackBerries, having classified documents in unclassified hands. Okay. Same thing goes with Clinton keeping records that had classified information on them. It was tapes in a sock drawer. Okay. But the fact of the matter is that they are going after Trump and trying to throw the entire freaking book at him when they've already given a pass to two other people who have done this. They actually are even giving a pass to Biden, because Biden had documents from way back when he was a senator and a vice president. He never should have had them, period. Never should have had them at all. Okay. But they are still going after him for this reason. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting about the Presidential Records Act, it's a civilian matter. There is no criminal statute for it. It's sort of like the U.S. flag code. There's no real punishments there. Therefore, it's not a criminal matter. It is a civil matter. It would be handled in a civil court. you would take the man to court and he would get sued to get them back in a civilian court, not a criminal court. And yet here, this guy, this political hitman, is going after him in a criminal court. Now, even the additional charges that have been brought against Trump, like obstruction, Clinton did that too. Both of them. Okay. So again, this is just an exacerbation of the entire political viewpoint that this is a political hit job going after the number one political candidate that is the opposition for the current people in power. Okay. And so, yeah, this is going to be interesting when it finally does get in front of the court. Right now it's all in, pre-trial stuff. So it'll be interesting when it comes in front of the court as to what happens here. But one other thing that Trump has vowed to do, which personally I think is another check mark for voting for him, is the fact that Trump vowed to fire Smith should he be elected in 2024. So, yeah. But among the most notable cases, just to kind of give you an idea, because me sitting here ranting isn't going to prove anything to you, but just among his most notable corruption cases, Smith was overturned unanimously in the Supreme Court when he prosecuted the former Republican governor of Virginia, Bob McDonnell. The Supreme Court later overturned the case in a unanimous 8-0 decision. The court observed that there is no doubt that this case is distasteful. It may be worse than that, but our concern is not with the tawdry tales of Ferraris, Rolexes, and ball gowns. It is instead with the broader legal implications of the government's boundless interpretation of the federal bribery statute. The Supreme Court also rebuked Smith and warned that the uncontrolled power of criminal prosecutors is a threat to our separation of powers. Smith also prosecuted Arizona Congressman Rick Renzi, who was a Republican, on corruption charges, which, unfortunately, the Supreme Court upheld that one, but Trump pardoned him. And then, let's see, Trump said... Trump talks a little bit about him, but basically those are like the two most notable. But the first one, of course, is the fact that Smith has consistently had problems going against, trying things in court. So I honestly, again, this is a political hit job. And part of the reason I think potentially as to why Smith added charges is because he wanted to get the clock pushed back. The court case was supposed to start in May of 2024. And I think Smith is trying to push it so that he can get it as close as he can get to the actual election date, so that it's the last thing on everybody's mind when they go walking into the voting booth. And this, of course, if that is his tactic, and that is what he's doing, again, allegedly doing, then we could potentially be looking at the next big election interference case. Speaking of election interference, okay, and of course, the government doing a horrible job at keeping themselves on the right side of the law, we all know about the Twitter files. And the whole Twitter files, Elon Musk dumped them, Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger and then somebody else, they all like dumped them out, and they talked about how there was government coercion in direct violation of what would be the First Amendment, basically using non-governmental organizations, NGOs, to do something that the federal government itself could not do. Well, Jim Jordan, being the guy that he is, found some Facebook files that said basically the exact same thing with regards to pressuring the company or pressure, but where Biden pressured the company to remove vaccine posts, humorous and otherwise, about and other info about its side effects. Okay. So, okay, hold up. Before I go too far with this, I have a question over here. Amy is asking on Rumble. I'm still confused. How can they indict Trump, who can declassify documents, and Biden, who stole documents when he was a senator, is getting away with it? Okay, so here's how it works, Amy. Being indicted doesn't mean anything. You can indict a ham sandwich, okay? So his being under indictment basically is only a political shot, really, and a more of a public viewpoint issue. All of these things that they're accusing him of now, once they get to the court date, they're going to have to prove. And the bar to actually prove most of these is pretty significant. So right now, and this is part of the reason why I keep saying that that this is a political hit job, okay, is because of the fact that they are trying to smear Trump in the press and in the public's mindset in order to avoid him being able to win over those independents. Okay. And so what is happening here is all comes down to the DOJ. All right. The Department of Justice has decided to turn a blind eye to Biden because, and even, let's be honest, even to things like Mike Pence, because he had a couple, or even, go to Obama, who has something like 133, or maybe that was Clinton's emails. I don't remember, having, hundreds of thousands of documents in a storage locker near Martha's Vineyard. Okay. The thing about it is that realistically, I really am wondering whether or not they actually want this to get to trial. All they want to do realistically is make it so that he gets smeared in the public, that the press keeps pushing on him and making you think that he's done all these bad things. Keep in mind, the audio tape that they are using as a primary source, yes, he is saying, look here, I have a classified document. I could have declassified it when I was in as president, but I didn't. Now, the thing about it is with that document, like I said on a program a couple, 2, 3, 4 episodes back, you don't know what he's showing them. Okay. Unless they have an eyewitness who basically can say, this was a classified document, yes, so on and so forth, okay? Unless they have a source or some type of video evidence that shows that particular document being classified, being the Iranian battle plans or something like that, they really have nothing because, the audio says it. I mean, yeah, Trump is so much of a narcissist. And Trump being just Trump. I mean, Trump being Trump, he feels like, things are his. And so he grabs it and he says, those are mine. And he takes them. Okay. That's just the way he is. And unfortunately, that gets him into trouble. And that's part of the reason why I have a bit of a problem with him personally. Okay. But the fact of the matter is that he is not, this case hasn't come to fruition yet. They haven't actually taken it to trial. And so the longer he can delay and push this into and as close to the actual election, the more chances they have of influencing those ever-present and very important independent voters that haven't jumped into the Trump camp. Okay? So, yeah, I mean, again, whether or not this actually goes to trial, it remains to be seen. Whether or not he actually has the evidence to go to trial remains to be seen. Again, right now, it's in the press, it's in the media, And to all of the leftists out there and the ones that still believe the mainstream media are doing what they're supposed to be doing, that's what they want. It's all show. It's all for show at this moment. That's what it's for, okay? They want to cover up the whole Hunter Biden thing. They want to cover up for that. So you'll notice the timing. Hunter Biden's plea deal falls apart and boom, all of a sudden, Jack Smith files new, things to keep Trump up in the papers. And unfortunately, Trump, love the guy, for being a president and all, but Trump falls right into it because Trump likes talking about Trump. And so Trump's going to keep talking about Trump. If Trump was really savvy about what they were doing, and I'm not calling him not savvy, just don't misread this, but if he were really, really savvy, he'd quit going after Ron DeSantis, who is not anywhere near in the polls. In fact, Vivek Ramaswamy is possibly passing him in the polls. What he should be doing is turning all of his full-on attention to Biden, to Hunter, to the corruption, all of that. He should focus all of his energy that way. Forget the rest of it. Unless he does something completely stupid, he's got the nomination locked up right now. All he has to do is hang on to his lead and keep giving people what they want. But what they want is they want him to go after Biden. They want him to attack Biden. They want him to attack Hunter. That's what he should do. He should go after them. Forget about Ron DeSantis. Forget about Tim Scott. Forget about, all of the others. Forget about all of them because they have an insurmountable attack, or they have an insurmountable hill that they have to come after. They have to get to him. He doesn't have to go to them. He can just coast his way realistically in the primaries. He should already assume I've got this locked up and go after Biden. That's what he needs to do. Okay. Moving back over to this. So Jim Jordan found, Biden pressured the company to remove vaccine posts and so on and so forth. So here we are. Once again, the Biden administration using a non-governmental organization to do something that they are legally stopped from doing. And it's not only the vaccine stuff. Apparently, according to the Wall Street Journal, Facebook demoted a video of Tucker Carlson by 50% at the demand of the Biden White House. Okay. So, so that was really, again, Facebook is in league. No surprise there, in league with the Biden organization. And why this isn't a really big story, I have no idea. But anyway, okay. So I've got a twofer in the questions for whiskey that I'll get to. I'm just trying to keep an eye on time here. So what we have here, 2 ways. So this is another article. I've been hammering the crap out of Bidenomics too, because I'm getting a little tired of seeing the White House and the VP and, Joe Biden, all, especially on Twitter. That's all they post about is Bidenomics, Bidenomics, Bidenomics. Well, here's an article from, Town Hall and, 2 ways which Bidenomics is crushing Americans. Now, I know a lot of people are not into economics, okay, but, this is pretty important. So the thing about it is that there is a misunderstanding in particular about the inflation rate and how the inflation rate is, coming down. Now, keep in mind, it came down from a 40-year high at 9%. But this is a year-over-year inflation rate, okay? So if that year-over-year inflation rate doesn't come down to the same that it was 2 years ago when Trump left office, okay, or 3 years ago when Trump left office, then it's still increasing. It's still making us pay more for the things that we desperately need, okay? Now, the thing about it is that inflation is up 3% year over year, which is basically twice what it was back when Trump was in office. Okay. And it's been advancing at 0.2% over month. So it's still rising. It's not coming down. It's still rising. Okay. And then the other thing is that the fact that the inflation rate that they talk about removes energy and food, which both energy and food are rising right now. They're not going down. They're rising. Even though gas and oil did drop, they're still higher than what they were, and they're still working their way up. Okay. So inflation continues to grow. So this is a Job Creators Network CEO, Alfredo Ortiz. He basically says inflation continues to grow faster than the Federal Reserve's target rate, hurting ordinary Americans and small businesses struggling to keep up. Over the course of President Biden's time, inflation has meaningfully outpaced wage growth, reducing Americans' living standards. He also reminded of the negative real wages faced by Americans for more than 24 consecutive months since Biden took office. So Bidenomics is not working. Regardless of what any of the news media outlets tell you, it is not working. It's not functioning. And by the way, saw this piece as an agreement. Gas prices, according to the Epoch Times, gas prices have hit an 8-month high as oil prices keep rising. Now, how is it that oil prices rise? Well, it's pretty simple. Econ 101, the law of supply and demand. When demand goes up and supply goes down, prices go up. When supply increases and demand goes down, prices go down. Pretty damn simple, folks, but even a Democrat can't freaking grasp that simple concept. And because of the fact that Biden and his policies got rid of our energy independence that Trump had just gotten us to, we are losing because we're now buying it off the regular market, which means that our prices are fluctuating as the market fluctuates because we're buying it all from the market. And that whole thing about him tapping into the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, yeah, that only goes so far. That only goes so far. And so he's going to end up, in a situation where we're going to end up in a bad situation. You can't just refill that freaking thing. And, it's going to be a problem, people. We're in a period of what is known as stagflation. That's literally where we're at, is stagflation. And it's not pretty. Bidenomics sucks. It literally does. It's doing nothing for low income people and the regular average Americans. It's just not happening. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and, we'll go ahead and take care of it. Let's do our questions for whiskey. And tonight's questions for whiskey is a twofer. But before I get to that, I got to give a shout out to Rich over on Rumble. Thank you very much for the Rumble rant. Rich says, great show tonight. Thank you, Rich. I do appreciate that. And hey, I also noticed somebody left me, and I can't remember who right off the top of my head, but somebody left me a review over on Facebook. So if you're over on Facebook, yeah, give me a review. It was an awesome review too. I was very pleased by it. So I do appreciate that. It might have actually been, I'm trying to think. I think it might have been Dave over there. But anyway, whoever it was, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. The more you guys talk about this show, the more that you guys pass this out, the more that you share the show and point people to it, the bigger I'm going to get. And I do appreciate every single one of you. This is crowdfunding at its best. Okay. Crowdfunding at its best. Anyway, So our question for Whiskey comes from 3 Chevy over on Rumble. And like I said, it's a twofer. So here's the first one. Hey, Whiskey. Hearing various people talk about Hunter Biden and his tax situation falling under the statute of limitations. My question is, do you know if there are any ways a crime that falls under the statute of limitations can still be investigated? All right. So here's the thing. The statute of limitations basically is the time limit that is it's a period of time, and it's arbitrarily set, by the way. There isn't any consistency across the board. It could be set differently within each state if it's a state statute that's being violated, or it could also be, in terms of the federal one, it would be a federal statute. So the state statutes and federal statutes are two totally different things. And in some states, there actually aren't any statute of limitations. In the federal level and in most places, the statute of limitations on things like murder, rape, and treason are essentially zero. Okay. So it really depends on the crime and where the crime occurred. Now, there's even more nuances to this. In some cases, the statute of limitations, the time on it, starts when the crime was discovered. In other cases, it's when the crime was committed. And so a lot of it really depends on, in terms of like the state of Delaware, for an example, if he did tax fraud in Delaware, he would have challenges based on the Delaware laws, and in terms of the federal statutes, it would depend on those as well. Now, statute of limitations are also can exist for both civil and criminal cases. And generally speaking, what it basically means is that if the statute of limitations runs out, then yes, you can no longer be prosecuted for that particular crime. However, there is a catch. In some places, there is a thing known as a stale crime. They call it a stale crime. And essentially what that means is that the crime itself kind of went cold, but you could actually get tried or prosecuted for it. Now, here's the thing: the statute of limitations is not a prosecutorial thing. That's up to the defense to track and to decide on whether or not it actually falls within it. So if the defense doesn't keep track or doesn't use that as a particular defense and ask for the court to dismiss the case, then, you can still get tried for something, even though it's over the statute of limitations. Now, if your defense lawyer knows about the statute of limitations and still allows you to go get tried for it, then yeah, you should fire that guy or girl, whoever it is. But anyway, it all has something to deal with that. Now, there is also another aspect too. They don't all have to be written down either. They don't all have to be a part of the law. They could be what's called judicial common law, which is basically a understanding of the legal precedent for, how long a particular crime before somebody was tried, say, previously for it. So, that could be like 3 years, 5 years, that kind of stuff. Most misdemeanors, for an example, generally speaking, are like about 1 year to 2 years. Felonies could be anywhere from like 5 to 25 years, depending upon what happens. And like I said, things like murder, rape, treason, those don't have any kind of statute of limitations to them at all. Okay. So hopefully that answered your question sufficiently. So let's move on to question number 2. I was listening to Mark Tuesday and caught bits and pieces of the move to expunge Trump's impeachment. I didn't know that was possible. How many votes would it take? And why wouldn't the Republicans in the House be all in favor of that? Okay. The Constitution of the United States clearly talks about impeachment. It clearly states what it takes to be impeached. And it clearly talks about the fact that the House impeaches and the Senate decides removal of the president. Outside of that, there's nothing. I have literally no idea where they're getting this from. It has never been done before. We're in complete new territory with this. So, considering the fact that the House holds the entire impeachment process, has the power of impeachment, and they hold it completely, it wouldn't surprise me any if they find a way to expunge his impeachments, to basically say that they're not real. And honestly, I can't see and I'm not a constitutional lawyer, of course, but I can't see any constitutional reason as to why they couldn't actually do that, because they're doing it within the House of Representatives. It's entirely on them to decide on impeachment, on the impeachment process, how it's done, so on and so forth. So, honestly, it would be interesting to see. But why would the Republicans not be in favor of that? Well, that pretty much simply rolls down to one thing. Not all Republicans like Trump. And they also realize that if they open the Pandora's box of doing something that isn't necessarily defined in the Constitution, that they could potentially be opening themselves up to having a problem later on down the road. Just like the whole thing with the justices trying to pack the court and getting more people or more justices on the court than what they currently have right now. And the reason being, again, it kind of boils down to politically more so than legally speaking. Politically speaking, would that be in their best interest? Because for those Republicans who have been never Trumpers or have divested themselves from Trump, it's probably not in their best political interest to be seen as expunging something or doing something that's extremely risky. You got to remember, politicians have one thing in mind and one goal, and that is to stay in office. It never has anything to do with whether or not they want to do something that is right. They just want to keep their damn job, which is part of the reason why we are in the situation that we're in, because politicians have forgotten the fact that they are there to serve the people and not to be a career politician. Hopefully that answers your question, your second question as well. Do me a favor. If you guys want to submit a question for Whiskey, you can do so by sending me an email to fans, FANS, at whiskeymusings.online. That's fans, phonetically spelled Foxtrot Alpha November Sierra, at whiskeymusings, all lowercase, all one word, .online. And you can go ahead and send that to me for Saturday night, for my Saturday night segment on questions for Whiskey. You can also send me your pet photos, videos, stories, whatever it is that you want for Pet of the Week for Wednesday night. I do Pet of the Week, where I highlight a pet that has been submitted for discussion, exposure, whatever it is you want to call it, on Wednesday night. And that can also be done at the same email address, fans at whiskeymusings.online. All right, everybody, that is my final Whiskey Musings thought of the evening. Do me a favor. If you like the program, please head on over to Rumble, sign up. It's free, and follow the Whiskey Musings Broadcast channel. We will see you on Wednesday for the next installment of the Whiskey Musings Broadcast. Have a great rest of your weekend and the first part of your week, of course, and we'll see you then. Good night, everybody.
The Whiskey Musings Broadcast is produced by Active Eye Media, LLC. All rights reserved.